Give me the camera. Give it off, down.
You know, film remakes have become incredibly commonplace in Hollywood, to the point where we barely bat an eye when we read about our favorite horror classics or obscure samurai films getting the modern Hollywood treatment. This is why we're introducing Remake Rematch, a new feature here on screen where we take a look at a movie, its remakes, and throw them all into a no-holds-barred match to determine which one's the best. It's more opinion than science, but we don't imagine you're coming to this site for scientific analysis anyway. You want that crap? Go read Metacritic. Today we're going to be looking at two classics and one not-so-classic movie. Just in time to be 2 months late for Akira Kurosawa's 100th birthday, we'll be putting the samurai classic Yojimbo against its multiple remakes. Yep, this one's a rare three-pronged attack, with both A Fistful of Dollars and Last Man Standing following the same formula of the Japanese foray. In all three, a lone drifter wanders into a lawless town ruled over by two gangs, decides to make some money by manipulating said gangs and setting them against each other, is compromised by an ill-timed act of kindness, heals up, and eventually settles the score, leaving behind a town empty of its former criminal element and pretty much everyone else as well. Yojimbo, which translates as The Bodyguard, was directed in 1961 by Kurosawa and stars his favorite leading man, the great Toshiro Mifune. It's widely regarded as one of the great samurai movies, and is especially interesting because it introduces a wild card in the form of a single pistol, owned by a son in one of the gang families. Now, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, but Yojimbo doesn't really have much choice in this case, and how he overcomes that obstacle gives the film's final battle an incredible build-up. It's worth noting that although the next two films are remakes of Yojimbo, this film itself is widely acknowledged to be based on the Dashiell Hammett novel Red Harvest.
This man with no name is played by Clint Eastwood. He's going to trigger a whole new style in adventure.
A Fistful of Dollars, the first of Sergio Leone's famous trilogy of films featuring the man with no name, followed in 1964 and gave Clint Eastwood one of his first starring roles. It's a fairly straight retelling of Yojimbo in a Western setting, but perhaps a little too straight, as Kurosawa actually sued Leone for copyright infringement and won, earning him more money than he ever made on Yojimbo. Finally, Last Man Standing was a big-budget Hollywood adaptation of the tale, directed by the Warriors and Brewster's Millions helmsman Walter Hill, and starring Bruce Willis as a gunslinger who comes across warring gangs of Irish and Italian mafiosos in a Prohibition-era Texas town. It's probably most notable for Willis's ability to fire 40 gunshots from a pair of Colt M1911 pistols that are only supposed to hold 8 rounds apiece. In Last Man Standing, Willis is a bit too mumbly and nondescript to take seriously as a badass gun thug. And while Eastwood would go on to give some amazing performances, his best days were still ahead of him when he made Fistful of Dollars. The winner here is easily Yojimbo. Mifune plays his role with an amazing physicality, using his facial expressions to show most of his emotions. As Mifune portrays him, the bodyguard is an amazing fighter, an incredible strategist, and still retains a heart of gold when there are people in need. Tough call here. Tatsuya Nakadai is an actor to rival Mifune, as he often did in Kurosawa's works. He would actually go on to be the villain once again in Sanjuro, the sequel to Yojimbo, despite his death in this film, and gave an electrifying performance alongside Mifune yet again a few years later in the amazing Sword of Doom. Unfortunately for him, his competition here is Christopher Walken as Hickey in Last Man Standing, a man so bad he cut his own father's throat when he was 10, and set his orphanage on fire after that. While his climactic showdown with Willis's character is a little lame, we're still talking about Christopher Walken playing a bad guy, and he's never not endearing in these roles. Although Fistful of Dollars does feature two men getting crushed to death by a gigantic liquor cask, which then explodes, the winner here has to be Last Man Standing, which gets off to a crazy start as Willis fills a man who damaged his car with enough lead to propel him backwards around 30 feet. Now, as a former physics major, let me tell you something. People do not fly backwards when you shoot them with a handgun, or even a shotgun for that matter. It might look cool in film, but it doesn't make it look any less ridiculous. Anyone who watches enough movies is used to the liberties that directors sometimes take with the properties of firearms. Even so, the first shootout in Fistful of Dollars is absurd. If you slow the footage down, you can clearly see Eastwood firing his weapon at a location 10 feet away from his intended targets, just before they recoil in pain and die horribly from a single gunshot. But even that doesn't hold a candle to Last Man Standing, however, which features Bruce Willis firing his weapons almost triple the number of times he should have been able to with the 2 Colt handguns he was using. This places this scene firmly in hard-boiled territory, in quantity if not quality. You know what, we can just leave Last Man Standing out of this discussion entirely. In terms of cultural influence, Yojimbo helped to revolutionize the samurai film in Japan, reshaping the genre as a vicious black comedy. Instead of a noble, honorable samurai, Mifune plays a rough-hewn ronin, more interested in money than in serving a lord. The storyline for Yojimbo did wind up being remade a few times, and some of the plot elements even wound up in Star Wars. However, speaking from a strictly American point of view, A Fistful of Dollars probably has a greater cultural cachet. It caused a wave of spaghetti westerns to arrive on American shores, and its success led to the creation of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which itself was tremendously influential on filmmakers such as Quentin Tarantino.
See, the Baxters have 4 men in the cemetery on account of me. I don't think they'd appreciate my presence.
As the Drifter approaches a town in each of these films, he witnesses something crazy that impresses upon him the lawlessness of its inhabitants and the general dystopian nature of events that are to follow. Last Man Standing's event is rather tame, as Willis observes a dead horse in the middle of the street. A Fistful of Dollars ups the ante by having a child being shot at after attempting to communicate with his imprisoned mother, quickly followed by a man riding his horse out of town with an Adios Amigo sign on his back. However, Yojimbo takes the crown easily, with a sight so incredible that you really just can't help but laugh at it. Let's go and watch.
Giorgio and the other guys got a real hot head about the kind of money you're getting. Giorgio don't like you too much, in case you haven't noticed.
Why's the guy send his girlfriend to come find me?
Straussy figures I wouldn't be dumb enough to do anything out of
Let's see that one more time.
Why's the guy send his girlfriend to come find me?
Straussy figures I wouldn't
Yeah,
be
that's
dumb
pretty
enough
awesome.
to do anything out of line, so he sent me.
Although an alternate ending was apparently filmed for Last Man Standing, portions of which can be seen in the trailer, the actual conclusion to the film is surprisingly tame compared to the rest of the film's bloodbath action scenes. A Fistful of Dollars is much better, putting Eastwood up against 5 men and using a bit of tricksterism to appear invulnerable, even if the scene should have been over in around 5 seconds if Ramon would simply aim for his head. Nothing can quite top Yojimbo though, which pits Mifune against a good 10 men, including one armed with a pistol. Now how does one man with a sword hope to take down such a crew to be reckoned with? To no one's surprise, Last Man Standing does not win. It's a dull, brown movie that is perhaps only notable for its inclusion of Leslie Mann as, in retrospect, probably the most unlikely ditzy hooker in the last 20 years of American film. Between Yojimbo and A Fistful of Dollars, well, Yojimbo is simply the better movie. By the time he made it, Kurosawa had already produced at least 3 films now considered to be among the best ever made: Rashomon, Seven Samurai, and Throne of Blood. And that's not even counting the beloved Ikiru or the 10th The Bad Sleep Well. Yojimbo caught him in a very fertile period, and Mifune's performance ranks among his very best. A Fistful of Dollars is a fine remake, but it's only Leone's second credit as a director, and unfortunately he never quite breaks free of the source material and makes it his own. So it doesn't take much deliberation to crown Yojimbo the winner in this battle of the remakes.